Hello, welcome back. Karen Sullivan, Soul Symbols Astrology. And what a beautiful week we have this week astrologically. So this week though, I'm going to begin with an image. Just indulge me a bit here. It's the week of poetic and symbolic. So indulge me with this image. Okay. So imagine a warm, beautiful home. So more than comfortable, a luxurious home. So you got a sense of ease and good food, soft furnishing, the flowers and vases and books on bookshelves, and guests gathered together in the library, people reading, talking, exchanging ideas. So there's culture here, refinement, pleasure, and hospitality. Okay. So that image is not one that popped in my mind. That image is really close to the Sabian symbol for the degree of the Venus and Jupiter conjunction in Cancer this week. Guests are reading in the library of a luxurious home. And this symbol is a really rich doorway into the astrology this week because it's carrying both the beauty and the shadow of this week. In such a beautiful week, there is shadow. So on one level, this is a gorgeous image. There's abundance and learning that you get a feel with this Sabian symbol that there's emotional safety and that pleasure of having enough. Okay. There's something here about being able to rest into comfort to feed the body and the heart and also the mind. So it's not just about material comfort for its own sake. At the highest, the image is of an environment where people can soften, reflect, read, speak, think. It's that sharing of meaningful, deep conversation. That for me feels really Venus and Jupiter in Cancer, that image. And as they come together this week, and I'll put the chart up here. Here they are. Here's Venus and Jupiter together with Mercury there. I'll cover Mercury in a minute. So Venus and Jupiter are coming together this week in Cancer. And Cancer is that sign connected with home, belonging, memory, nourishment, protection. But it's the emotional bonds that hold us. Venus here is bringing beauty, pleasure, relationships, sweetness. She's also associated with the arts, desires, but all those things we value. Then we got Jupiter here, and Jupiter always enlarges, blesses, expands, and gives meaning. And in Cancer, Jupiter is exalted, so really strong here. So he can be generous, caring, protective, and give that energetic of full-heartedness and be deeply concerned with human values. So when Venus and Jupiter meet in Cancer, there's a real possibility of emotional abundance. And this can be a beautiful, beautiful signature for affection, hospitality, generosity, and all those things, pleasure, food, comfort, and real tenderness and a desire to give from the heart. So it's a picture of ripe fruit for me. So it's not just fruit that's beginning to grow, but fruit that's swelled, it's ripened, it's lush and juicy and sweet, it's full. Okay? So it's that pleasure of summer abundance. So we can think of it as that bowl of fruit on the table while we share a meal with someone else. It's the warm voice and kind gestures that we can get, that fullness that says, I've got enough. And because I've got enough, I want to share it with you. And for me, one of the key questions as I was looking at this beautiful, energetic and feeling very lush and just, one of the questions is, what does it truly mean to give from overflow? Because we're talking overflow here. Venus, Jupiter in Cancer and that Sabian symbol, all lush and overflowing, okay? Because that true giving from overflow is really, really different from giving in order to be seen to be generous. Okay. And we see that sometimes with the philanthropists, like announcing it with trumpets. Okay. But it's also different from giving because we want to be approved of or admired, needed, or even recognized as kind for that validation that we all sometimes need validation. when we're giving from overflow, there's a quietness to it. It really doesn't announce itself. It comes because something in us is full enough to share. And the image I had for this was, a wedding, Venus, love, abundance, yeah, with the champagne triangle. So fill that top glass up and it all overflows. That's the image I've got. Okay, when it's full, it overflows and fills other cups. But also, I mean, with this rich imagery I'm describing, Venus and Jupiter together can really overdo things. Okay, so they can bring too much sweetness and indulgence and comfort, and definitely too much charm. And in Cancer, this can be emotional as well as the material. So we might see the tendency to overfeed, overgive, share, protect, over decorate, all over the top. And we might do that so that real feelings underneath gets sugar coated. Okay, don't know about you, but when I'm feeling down, a big fat slab of hot fudge chocolate cake with a bit of cream kind of makes me forget what I'm feeling. It's that sort of picture. So this is where that shadow of the Sabian symbol and of Jupiter and Venus is important, because the image isn't just a library, it's a library in a luxurious home. And the description of the symbol talks about social privilege, cultural excellence, wealth, but the way intellectual enjoyment can become part of social status here. So yeah, we got that light side here. The mind's cultivated in comfort. People were gathered somewhere where it's safe and beautiful to read, think, and improve themselves. But there's also that danger of knowledge becoming a kind of performance. So books can be read and they transform us, or books can be displayed because they make us look intelligent. Culture, we can have culture that refines, or it can be a badge of class, taste, sophistication, or spiritual status. And we've all seen that somewhere, haven't we? And the thing again that came to mind with the bookshelves, where the amount of people, when the internet blew up with the Zoom meetings, nearly everyone had a bookcase behind them. I used to muse about that. Very interesting. Like, here's my books. That confirms I'm wise and intelligent. But yeah, that is also relevant to the Venus Jupiter shadow, because there's a real difference between true abundance and the showcase of abundance. But that can also be said of wisdom and that performance of wisdom, or the sense of being nourished by beauty and then using beauty as a way to prove something. So we might find this week that there's questions for us around materialism, but I'm not just talking about materialism in the obvious sense, that cold, greedy sense. Cancer is emotional. It wants safety and wants to feel held. So the materialism here can come through the things we gather around ourselves in order to feel secure. So it can be that beautiful home, the books, the food, the clothes, the objects, whatever it is, the money, but the comforts that say to us as we sit amongst them, I'm safe, I'm cultured, successful, loved, and I belong. So it might be a time of looking at those things. And absolutely none of them are wrong in and of themselves. This chart isn't asking us to reject pleasure, beauty, comfort, food, money, or even the material world. Venus and Jupiter in Cancer can genuinely bless those things. The material world can be sacred, just as a meal and a home and a book can be sacred. A beautiful room can be our sacred space, our sanctuary. The material, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, it's how we're viewing that. So the questions we can ask ourselves is whether these things are alive with meaning or they're just a display. That's a good question to ask, to know whether the material is saying something else. So are we feeding the soul, or are we decorating our self-image? There's a tendency for Jupiter and Venus together to display superficiality and vanity. So that's just the shadow. So that can be a contemplative question we carry with us. We all don't want to be materialistic, but on some level, I think all of us are, and it's asking where is that occurring for me? There's also this week at the same time, and it's connected in a last quarter moon in Pisces. Let's get the chart up. Here we are. So this is really important because the moon in Pisces is forming a whole sign trine to Venus and Jupiter in Cancer. So we got this beautiful water connection here. Cancer and Pisces are speaking to each other. They're flowing to each other. So you got Cancer here saying, let me care for what's close. It speaks of nourishing what belongs to us and protecting our tender places. But Pisces, on the other hand, is saying, let me open beyond myself. Let me feel what's universal. Let me dissolve the edges and remember compassion. And because Jupiter is in Cancer, the moon in Pisces is in Jupiter's sign, while Jupiter is in the moon sign. So there's a beautiful mutual connection here between the moon and Jupiter and Pisces and Cancer. So we're looking at that connection between the oceanic and the familial. So it's between that compassion and care. It's deeply tender. Let me get you back here. So this tenderness we're seeing can open the heart, bring emotional intelligence. This could be a week for beautiful poetic communication and a sense of unseen emotional currents moving beneath just our mundane, ordinary life. So it can help us feel into what's nourishing and what's not this week. But this is a last quarter moon, so yeah, it's about that fullness and sweetness of the fruit that's grown there, but it's also a time of release, sorting, pruning, and it can be a time where we reorientate as we move towards the dark moon. So it can be a crisis in our consciousness, asking us to look at what remains after the fullness of the cycle, which began in Taurus in that fertile valley, and decide what's useful, finished, what we need to return to the earth. So if Venus and Jupiter in Cancer are giving us that ripe fruit, that last quarter moon in Pisces is asking us what's become overripe, too sweet, past its moment, what needs to be composted, or what flipped into my mind there is as it starts to ferment, what can we make into wine? But this is not what I'm talking about. And composting is it's not like chucking things away in disgust because it's starting to ferment. It's a really sacred process. It's taking what has fallen and what perhaps is rotting here, but what we can't eat in its current form, and it's returning it to the soil. And when it goes back into the soil, it becomes nourishment again. We might want to ask ourselves this week, what part of our emotional life needs composting? So those patterns we have around comfort, pleasure, money, care, generosity, or belonging, where have they gone a bit stale, or have they gone stale? They might not have gone stale for you. But look at where the sweetness has become kind of cloying, that cloying sweetness. But also where our kindness, we may be kind by nature, but where has it become performative? And also about our learning, where is that an image? I'm clever, I'm wise, I've got lots of books, whatever it is. Where is it just an image? And then that abundance, wherever we've got abundance, and we may not have it in homes and money and overflow of the material, but we may have an abundance of tenderness, care, encouraging words, whatever it is. Where's that abundance become like a showcase for us? These are really important questions this week. And I looked also at the tarot symbolism because I knew straight away it really deepens all these pictures that we've got, these beautiful, luxurious, full. They feel full to me, really full pictures. So the conjunction is falling in the moon's decan of Cancer, and that's signified by the High Priestess. So she is not interested in knowledge of social display. She's she's not sitting there between the pillars with a pomegranate and the Torah under her arm trying to look clever. Okay, she's not performing her wisdom here. She's sitting at a threshold of the seen and the unseen. She's connected with Persephone, again, queen of the underworld. So she's not lightweight. Her knowledge, the high priestess's knowledge, is inward. It's intuitive, it's esoteric, it's absorbed. So it's not that kind of knowledge that we gather just so we can talk about it at dinner. We're in a passing conversation, okay? It's a knowledge that changes the way that we perceive reality here. So the image of the luxurious library, the high priestess is asking, are you really reading? Listening? Are you allowing that knowledge to enter, like really enter into the deeper chambers of the self? That's the question for us this week. Or are we acquiring ideas in order to appear refined, spiritual, cultured, or well informed? I think at the full moon, I talked in Sagittarius, I talked about Chiron, his wisdom being that of experience. He was the wounded healer. So we're looking at, why are we collecting information? It's a really strong and it's an important question to ask ourselves. But there's also the Four of Cups that's connected to this decan. It's the third decan of Cancer. And it's interesting because that is showing someone who's got cups before them and another cup being offered. That always, to me, the hand out the clouds reminds me of the Ace of Cups. But there's hesitation, refusal. But at the very least, he's pausing to take it here. And in the context of this chart, I don't think that refusal is necessarily negative. I'm thinking that Four of Cups could be the soul's refusal, saying, I don't want another decorative cup. I don't want more sweetness for the sake of sweetness or comfort that's going to numb me. You know, I talked about that hot fudge chocolate cake. Okay, that's comfort that numbs me when I need it to. Okay, I don't want abundance that's going to distract me. I want a cup that's real. This could be this message of this Four of Cups here. So it becomes a card of discernment here. It's asking us to pause before consuming more, whether that be food, words, contents, spiritual ideas, shopping, or emotional reassurance. You know, more of anything. That can be beauty, more luxury, more distraction. Okay, it's a card. We can use it as a card of discernment. So this is asking: is this cup nourishing me, or am I reaching for it because I don't want to feel something else? And then we look at Cancer, and that's linked with the Chariot. Okay, the Chariot brings in that question of direction. Where's it all taking us? What's the destination of our desires, care, abundance, our learning? So in the Rider-Waite-Smith image, you can see here that the charioteer doesn't visibly hold reins. So that's always been fascinating to me. So that movement's not controlled in the usual way. And what I've come to know about this card is it is a direction that comes through inner alignment, will, trust, and symbolic mastery. So there's a choice here. Are we going to allow the deeper current to move us towards what is true nourishment for us and wisdom and true emotional maturity? Or are we going to take hold of the reins in that anxious way and try and steer our abundance towards something that validates us or proves our worth? That might be the real fork in the road this week. So we might be coming to that kind of crossroads moment where one path is saying, I'll use what I've got to deepen, nourish, care, learn, to basically lean more into being human. And there might be another path there, okay, that we try and steer down that says, I'll use what I have to look abundant and wise and spiritual, generous or successful. So I think this is really about authenticity this week. That second path is where the true abundance can be lost, because the moment abundance becomes that showcase, it stops nourishing us. It's an image and we have to maintain that image. Sometimes we can feel the most blessed when everything's fallen away and we're in a precarious position. It so can. We can start seeing the abundance we truly have that's located in it. But this is also bringing us back to communication, because we still got that sun in Gemini. here, and Mercury in Cancer. So a lot here about words. Gemini can speak, share, think, connect. It moves. It's an energetic that moves quickly between ideas. And Mercury in Cancer is speaking through Cancer. So the memory, feelings, it's speaking through tenderness and emotional association. So at its best, Mercury in Cancer can be really poetic and caring. And it can be extremely evocative communication. So that voice that can just touch the heart. But in the shadow, it can really be too much. So the communication can be really long-winded or sweet, sentimental, too eager to show how sensitive, learned, or caring we are. This is where the last quarter moon can become that pruning knife or clippers, whatever you use. So there's a sense here that we're being asked to cut back the overgrowth, maybe to say less, but what we do say having more meaning, to let our words first get nourished by silence. There's something really poignant in that for me. To let knowledge become wisdom before we put it out on show like our bookshelves. Okay. And maybe it's to notice where we're using beautiful language to cover something that we don't want to face. So the heart of the week for me, it's not, definitely not about rejecting this stunning Venus and Jupiter. I wouldn't want to flatten this astrology into a warning against pleasure or abundance, because there's just such depth of beauty here. There's warmth, care. There's huge possibility of generosity and emotional richness. There's that sense of we can have full-bodied enjoyment. Maybe I can eat that cake, not to avoid, but I can just sit down and really enjoy it, okay? And there's that pleasure of good conversation and food and deep feeling and human kindness. So the chart is asking for discernment. It's asking whether the fruit is still nourishing us, what's grown there, or whether it's becoming overripe. So is that library a place of living wisdom, or is it the backdrop for social status? And it's also asking whether generosity is coming from overflow or the desire to be seen, and whether our material world is supporting our soul, or whether it's a substitute for the soul. So this week, we can think of ourselves and understand other people this week in that process. None of those things might apply to you, but there may be people moving from that energetic, and you'll be able to, that's the whole point of looking at the archetypal landscape, so you can navigate it with goodness and kindness in that way, where you can, of course. But if we think about ourselves this week, walking through that luxurious home, the image at the beginning, so we notice the beauty and appreciate the comfort, okay? We honour those books, the food, the soft chairs, the people who've gathered, the guests, that warm conversation, honour it. We don't have to reject any of that. I don't think we're meant to. But then perhaps we walk out into the garden, and there beneath the trees, some of the fruit's fallen. Some of it's good and it needs gathering, but some's too far gone and needs to go back into the soil. That's the wisdom of the last quarter moon. So not all abundance is meant to be consumed. Some of it needs to be composted and become future nourishment for us. And some needs to go back in that dark, rich earth of our psyche, where it can break down and become something more honest. So Venus and Jupiter meet in Cancer, and perhaps that invitation is to enjoy what's genuinely sweet and receive what is genuinely nourishment, and to give only from what we're truly full of. And as the moon moves through Pisces in this last quarter phase, perhaps the deeper invitation for us all is to release the performance of abundance or wisdom, or the performance of care, which a lot of us can do. Because that real abundance doesn't always need to look luxurious. Sometimes, and we always find this when we come down to nothing, when we're about to lose or have lost everything. Sometimes real abundance is just a quiet room or a truthful word. It can be a shared meal and a book that actually changes us. It can also be a cup we choose not to take or a gift we give without needing anyone to notice. This week is asking us to come back to that, to come back to the sweetness that truly nourishes us and knowledge that deepens, and to the generosity that flows from the full cup. Also asking us to come back to the compost heap, where everything that is false, overripe, and performative can return to the soil and become real again. So that's what I have for you people. Really enjoy it. Lap the luxury up, okay? But they're good questions to ask in the middle of it. So if you enjoyed, drop a comment for me in the box, will you, please? Out of your overflow, drop me a comment. Drop me a like and a subscribe, okay? And if you want to have a look, maybe have a look where Jupiter and Venus are in your chart, and how they help you within your life, beautiful planets they are, then you can pop along to www.soulsymbols.co.uk and book a reading there. I'd love to read for you. Okay, I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.